this campus, I'm flooded with memories, really positive memories. My own kids, I don't think Mo mentioned, this was our first school. My daughter, who's 22, started kindergarten here at Pegasus. I don't even know what year it was, but it was a long time ago. 99? 2000? And we moved from Orange County in 2004, and so with all my children, we've experienced a lot of schools. And I just want to start by saying you're very fortunate to be at Pegasus, because Pegasus has been the benchmark by which I've judged every school since, and have not been able to find anything like it in other schools. So even though, as we all know, no place is perfect, you're pretty close here. So congratulations for being here and giving this opportunity to your kids. Okay, so about 3 years ago, I was leaving a soccer game with my son, and a parent on our team said, "Good game," and said his name. And my son didn't turn around and kept walking and didn't say anything. And I was not only mortified, I was just shocked that he didn't respond to the compliment that he was given. And then I realized that this was not a moment to berate my son. It was a teaching moment that I waited till later, because you know you always have to wait until you're out of that particular moment to do these teaching moments. But at dinner that night, we had a conversation just about social graces. And we started this conversation with our 2 boys, the ones who are still at home, because my 3 daughters are all grown, and just the importance of good social skills. And we used the kind of compliment as an example. And we also had a little bit of bribery involved, because we had received a postcard about a cotillion that was starting in our town. And my boys were 9 and 12, and the one thing they did not want to do was go to cotillion. So I said, okay, you don't need to go to cotillion if we can start a social skill of the week at dinner at home, and you can practice those. If we don't do that, you guys are going to cotillion. So with that, I had the buy-in for them to participate in our evening discussions about social skills. And it's been really good. We've kind of kept it up. We don't always do it, but when something comes up, it's a great opportunity to not be, in the moment, making them feel like you're being criticized, but to just say, hey, you know what, this week's social skill we're going to talk about is opening doors. So we've done really simple things to more complicated things, but we've actually had conversations about, well, how far away does the person need to be for you to keep holding the door open? Which, I know that seems like a really simple thing, but as adults, we sometimes forget that these are things that you don't just know, you actually have to think about sometimes. And so I have found, especially with my boys, some of these social skills do not come naturally. So we are spending more and more time on social skills. So simultaneous with my own kids and seeing some of their social skills deficits, I also had, as part of my midlife reassessment, decided to go back to school to get my master's degree in psychology. And what I really loved researching was positive psychology and all the things that make people thrive. And it had, for my own life, for my family, and for camp, I just thought, this is what I want to know about. What is it? What are the secrets to just a happy, great life? And so I knew I wanted to do something with my research that had to do with positive psychology and camp, and maybe the influence of camp or how it impacts kids. And I ended up circling back always to the same thing. And it's pretty common sense, and you probably just all know this already, that it's our relationships with other people that are most predictive of a good, happy life. And it's the relationships with our family, our siblings, our friends, and our spouses. That's what makes a good life, really, the bottom line. More than your job or anything else. Those things aren't as important in the end as your relationships. And not surprisingly, there's a relationship between how you get to good relationships and good social skills. So I started with the happiness and the positive psychology and ended up back at the basics of social skills. There's a lot of research about children and social skills, and it's no surprise that children with better social skills are less likely to be rejected by their peers. There's a science behind kids who are, socially more accepted, socially rejected, or just sort of like not involved at all. And it's the social skills that make a difference. I was really happy to hear that Pegasus has a Be Kind campaign. I am not enthusiastic about anti-bullying campaigns just because I think it focuses on the negative, and I think it's great to be talking about the social skills, being kind. That's a friendship skill. I like that conversation. I also like to tell parents that if your child is not being accepted, this is when you can start working on some social skills. I think it's going to be a lot more important for your child to be a good friend and to have great relationships with other people. And those are the things that are going to be the more lasting benefits for your child. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is kind of the trajectory, why we're talking about this and why you're spending some time on it, and maybe want to, in your own families, think about it a little bit more, put a little more time into the friendship and social skills as opposed to some of the other things. So just to start with, I use the term social skills very kind of broadly because all of these things that people have been talking about, in 1995, Daniel Goleman coined the phrase emotional intelligence, so we've all heard that. And he did all this research that showed that emotional intelligence is actually more predictive of success than your IQ. So, which was great news for a lot of us non-genius people. That whole concept of your character, how you relate to other people, sort of that whole area, we all know intuitively that you can be really bright, have some fantastic idea, or even discover something, but if you don't have the capacity to share that with other people, nothing's going to happen with it. So again, just to challenge you, these are what people, when you're interviewing someone, and they're looking for the soft skills. Do you have eye contact? Are you personable? Are you someone that we want to have in our office? It's not just going to be that you can compute the numbers or do the whatever other work that's involved. So anyways, that's why we're talking about this. And the other thing that I have to share with you, and I think maybe you thought the same way, but I've worked with all these kids for all these years at camp, and we've kind of been, there's always that, little Johnny, he's a little awkward. You just kind of get in this mode of some kids are just kind of better at this stuff than others. Some kids are really socially very adept and great at making friends, and others are just, they've got some trouble, and we all know adults and ourselves who have some trouble in some areas socially. So we sort of have been in a fixed mindset. And I'm sure all of you at Pegasus have been talking about growth mindset and Carol Dweck's work. I want to challenge you to get in a growth mindset about your kids' social skills, just like you are with their academic and athletics and everything else they do. Because social skills, I will tell you 100%, they can be improved upon. They are an area where your kids can grow a lot. And they actually can see the growth in themselves. This is something that we ask kids at camp. We ask them how they think they changed because of camp. And they will say things like, I became more outgoing. I learned how to be a better friend. Things very, very profound things from 9, 10-year-olds. So your kids they're aware of these skills and how important they are. They see them in other people, and they're very aware of that. So I want to challenge you to start working with them. I also want to say it's never too late. Whether your kids are really young or you're thinking about yourself and your own social skills, it's never too late to work on these things. In fact, I feel like all of us can work on social skills all the time. So in your conversation with your kids, it should be in a very positive, framed manner. So, saying things like, what do you notice about, Susie seems like a really nice friend. What are some of the things that she does that you really like or that make you like her? So making it more of a conversation with your kids, and very much not something that they have to get a grade on, or that they're going to be scored, or it's not that type of thing. It's a really comfortable conversation for you talking to your children about how you want them to be happier and everything else. So now we're going to just go through a little list. And this is not a comprehensive list of every social skill in the world, but these are ones that, based on the research that I did, I narrowed down for things that our counselors at camp look for and can notice. So what you're wanting, as you go through these, think about your own child or children or whoever you work with. Think about the things that, hey, she's really good at that. That's something that I think, that's a real strength socially of my child. And then also think about the areas, that's an area where he can improve upon a little bit. I think that we could work on that one. Please do not go home with this list and sit down at dinner tonight and say, we have 7 social skills to address. Starting with number 1, let's get out the flip chart. We are, I know you would never do that, but I think what you want to start with are perhaps the one, if you see one on there, that is maybe the most annoying of your child's social deficits. And I will say that because things that repel other children. And when you go through this, you will notice those things, and you might have a light bulb go off about people you know, as I said, kids or adults, who might do some of these things. So again, look through the list. At the end, we're going to just take a minute. I will tell you just some of what I've heard from other parents about what are the ones that are most commonly the deficits that they find in their own kids. And then I'm going to briefly talk to you about how to coach your child, some skills that you can use, things that you can do just at home at your dinner table, social skill of the week conversation, or at bedtime, or whenever you choose to talk about these things with your child. Okay, so again, these are going to be really common sense to you guys, but I really think that sometimes as parents we want the best for our kids, and sometimes that includes we want them in the popular group or whatever it might be. And I think that it's really important for kids early on. I don't know about you guys, it took me a while to figure out what my own tribe was. But when you're trying to be cool and fit in and be in the in crowd, you're often not very happy. And what really makes you happy is when you get to that point where you can figure out who your people are, who the people are that you just really get along with, you have things in common with. So whether it's the Pokemon cards, I don't even know what little boys are doing in school anymore, but probably those aren't allowed. But whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with your child's interests or what they like to do. So whether it's a sport or a particular chess club or reading a certain kind of book, whatever it is, help them think about who else likes those kind of things at school. You know, kind of help them figure out their tribe. Because I think this whole thing is so important. If you're hanging around with a bunch of kids who you feel kind of like an outsider and they don't really have the same interests as you, that's just not a very happy place to be. And so I know that it takes some time to it's a lifelong journey of finding the people who are going to be your tribe. But I like this conversation with kids, talking to them about that it doesn't matter if your group is perceived as cool or you're the ones in the specialist limo going to some party or whatever it is. It's important to be with people who accept you, like you, and have some things in common with you. So that's something to think about with your child. Are they in the right tribe at the moment? Have they found one or two, even one kid, one or two who are a good tribe for them? They're equals, they're enjoy each other. So that's one thing. The other thing, this is especially, oh my gosh, my boys are now 12 and 15. Let me just say that is not the height of social skills. The kids really don't realize, like a lot of times our kid will say, well, they just weren't very nice to me. They didn't welcome me. And they weren't very nice. But what was your child doing in the moment? Was your child smiling, having an open, welcoming posture? These are some things our kids need to realize, that the world isn't just going to come to them. And if they're, sitting in a corner with their head down and not smiling, it's going to be, people are going to approach them. So just some basic nonverbals is a great way to start with your kids. It's just talking about, just try, why don't we walk into the store, try smiling and see what happens to the people around you. Just see what the impact is if you change something about yourself. So I love thinking about all of the nonverbal things. And again, I've learned from my kids, do not remind them in the moment when they're meeting an adult, eye contact, be sure to shake their hand. Even though you're kind of embarrassed because maybe they're not doing it exactly right, practice it at home. And practice it at home, and then when they do it correctly, afterwards, not in front of the other person, you say, wow, that was great eye contact, I loved your smile, and wow, you even said a comment back and asked them a question, terrific. So the nonverbals, this might be something that your child needs to work on. Okay, this is another favorite. What's everybody's favorite subject to talk about?
Themselves.
Yes, themselves. So it is a remarkable thing, and I'm sure you've all learned this in life, that you can have a whole conversation where all you do is ask someone questions about themselves, and they leave saying, that Audrey's the nicest person I've ever met. Oh my gosh. And so this is something that our kids might not know. You know, they don't, again, you just kind of, that's something that you learn over time, and we all know some adults who have not learned that over time. So, with your kids, great, whatever age they are, brainstorm. What are some questions you could ask at recess or lunch, or what are some different things that might bring up some good conversation? So, literally brainstorming with your kids questions that they can ask other kids. And this is something we do at camp. We actually make it an activity. Okay, everybody think of one question to ask their friend on the canoe, or whatever it might be. So, this is such a great, easy thing to work with your kids on. So brainstorm the questions they could ask that are appropriate for their age, and practice it with them. So, and then also the listening to the answer, and maybe the whole concept of follow-up questions. So if you're talking about football, your follow-up question shouldn't be about some TV show you just watched. Keeping the conversation on track. And this is why also just family dinner, family conversations are so good, because they're an opportunity to practice with each other these conversation skills. Okay, so another thing, did you know that the term play date was only invented like 15 years ago or something? Or maybe 20. Crazy. So there was no such thing before the modern era of like this whole very complicated, oh my gosh, when can we schedule a play date? Oh, Tuesday afternoon, no, we have soccer. So it used to be that kids, it was very spontaneous, kids just play. So I know your kids probably are pretty busy, have a lot of things going on. So this inviting and joining thing is very important, because a lot of times it's not big things that you need to learn to invite people for, it's little things. It's, hey, do you want to sit next to me at lunch today? Or do you want to go play basketball? Invitations. Again, if you have a child who says, nobody wants to play with me, what do they need to do? They need to figure out who might want to play some things with me. Look around your class. Who is it that you've seen who likes to play handball or basketball or jump rope or whatever it is that you want to do? And try inviting them, to do that. Again, this is not something that comes naturally to everyone, so inviting. The other thing is joining. How many of us have had a kid come and say, well, they wouldn't let me play. So when a group of kids are in the middle of a game, playing a game, and your kid walks up and says, can I play, I want to be on this team, and whatever. What does that feel like to the group of kids who are in the middle of their game? It's an interruption, it's annoying. So there's even an art to joining that is good to talk about with kids, and I think even young kids can understand this, that you could say, hey, can I play next game? Or can I join in on that? Because the kids they'll include, but if they have someone who always bursts in at the wrong time, or is sort of inserting themselves, or going to the yard duty to say, they wouldn't let me play. That is, I know, we tell kids to go seek adult help, and I'm all for that. But a lot of times, it's the child that needs to learn some skills to help themselves get involved in a way that's going to help them be included and make better friends. So, low-risk invitations and joining. By the way, I'm going to send you guys a PDF of this if you fill out your... I love that you're taking pictures of all my things, but I have a really nice PDF with everything on it. So I have a sign-up sheet over there, and if you fill out a little survey about my talk, I will send you your PDF that has a lot of links to some different things that you'll like. So, but you can keep taking pictures if you want to. Sharing, this kind of goes along with asking questions, but have you ever been with a kid who starts sharing? I just remember we were in the jacuzzi at a hotel pool, and we had this young man who started talking on and on about how he was a professional parkour athlete, and he was going on and on with these stories about himself and how he's some champion of this, that, and the other. We're all kind of like, oh, okay. Great, we're all like kind of shaking our head. Yes, we don't even know this person. It was oversharing. It was oversharing. It was absolutely no questions. Didn't even know our name. I don't even think we learned his name. It was just this. So this is again something that we all need to think about a little bit. I mean, really, even in a conversation when you're in the moment with a friend. I mean, I think sometimes with a good friend you say, "Wow, I've been talking a lot and just telling all about my what's going on with you, what's happening. So it's that talking with your child and talking about appropriate sharing and making sure conversations are balanced. It's also talking to them about, the first time you meet a friend, you don't want to sit down and say, my parents are divorced, are yours? Or kind of more, that kind of thing, how you ease your way into more intimate sharing with closer friends. So you want to talk to your kids about how, you have like your family and like closer friends and like further out, and what's appropriate to be sharing with those different groups. So I think this is, again, a conversation that at any age is really helpful, is just to talk about the sharing. So, obviously young kids sharing their toys is, we always talk about that, we think about that, and that's important too, to be, open about sharing, but more importantly, it's what you share about yourself, and also being aware that nobody likes the kid who is always talking and sharing their stories, and lunch is dominated by them. So, well, no, people like them, but you know what I'm saying. It just gets annoying. So just talk about that, sharing the high beam. If you have that really outgoing kid who's great at sharing, have them think about, hey, how could you let someone else have a turn in the spotlight? Okay, so this is something that can be really helpful when you think about your marriage and all relationships for yourself as well. So studies have shown that one of the number one predictors of great relationships that last are this feeling that when something happens to the other person that's great, you feel like it happened to yourself. So you are so excited for their victory and their accomplishment that your reaction is, oh my God, this is so exciting. This is what we've dreamed about. This is so awesome. So it's this sharing in other people's victories. And I think we live in a culture that is so competitive, and it's just always about the, oh, did you hear the kid who got the perfect SAT score? And, so our kids are so steeped in this competition and thinking that they're supposed to be competing with their friend for whether they got the top grade on the biology test or whatever it is. And instead, I think when you shift from that, that's a sad way to go through life, because obviously we all know that almost all of us are not the best SAT person or the top. Most of the time, that's very few people that are getting that. So the rest of us are not that person. But that whole concept is when you feel great for someone else. So when your child has that moment where, whether it's the fourth, I don't know if they still do the fourth grade play here, but, their friend gets a role, maybe even that they really wanted. To be able to say to them, that's hard that you didn't get the part you wanted, but that's really awesome for your friend. Aren't you happy for her that she gets to do that? And, why don't we bring her some flowers or write her an encouraging note or something like that. So it's that whole concept of just celebrating each other's victories. And I think in your own family with siblings, kids, I think helping them do that for each other is also really neat, to just kind of be excited for each other, and that one person's victory is everyone's victory. So I really like that concept too. So especially if you have a super competitive kid who gets in the car, like I have one, well, so-and-so grade mine was 1 point higher today, or, things like that. I think focusing on, isn't that great that, this person got this part in the play, or is going to that college, or whatever it might be, and truly feel it, and feel that celebration. Okay, so this one's pretty important, and it's really probably the most difficult to work on. But this is the thing that is found to be the number one predictor of kids who repel other children, who are socially not accepted. And it's kids who kind of fly off the handle and overreact and have trouble with their self-control and managing when they have a difficult emotion. They sometimes also have trouble reading, expressions, someone might be joking, but they take it seriously and that kind of thing. So this is a really important thing to work on. And sometimes with some kids, it requires therapy and counseling and really deep work on, but sadness, anger, how does your child deal with that when they're sad or they have, a hard situation? How do they handle that? And going through some coping strategies with them, learning some things they can do, whether it's just taking a deep breath or walking away for a minute or whatever it is, because those kids who have the really angry outbursts, the other kids are kind of looking like, ooh, something is off, So that's a really important area to work on with your kids. this is one of our things that we focus a lot on at camp, and it's great for us because parents aren't there, so kids can't run right to mom the second they have a problem with another child. They have to start learning how to resolve it themselves. And there are some really basic skills that you can go over with your child, and I actually have a whole post about this on my blog that's called something like 5 Steps to Conflict Resolution. Kids need to learn to solve some of their own problems. There are certain situations where they definitely should get an adult involved, but in life, they need to learn to resolve their own conflicts as well. And so this is really great, obviously at home, if you have more than one child, a lot of opportunity to learn some conflict resolution skills. And so this is something, if maybe this is the area that your child needs to work on. Because remember, we're thinking about our own kids. So you can't teach empathy, we all know this. Kind of this goes along with that feeling excited for someone else's victories, but you can model it as a parent and you can try to instill it in your kids and you can get them thinking about and doing things for other people, maybe doing some community service and different things that get them exposed to different kids. But it's something that is an important social skill. You know, when your friend walks in and you can see by their facial expression that they are sad about something, and you can say, hey, what's going on? You look a little down today. That's being a really good friend. And so, again, some kids just kind of come by this somewhat naturally, and other kids need to be taught. There's actually, you can go online and look at different faces and talk with your child. Share them and say, what do you think this person is feeling? And you can learn to read expressions better and be able to empathize more with how other people are feeling. So that's a skill that you can work on, but it does come more naturally to some people than others. Okay, and then you guys already have your Be Kind campaign, but we all know that, that friend that leaves an encouraging note on your car, or calls you up to congratulate you, or when you fall down, comes over to help you get up. Those are all things that are great friendship skills. That really builds like your bank of relationship. And so just being kind is really great. And compliments are an amazing way to do this. It was a failure, but we tried at home to have a compliment. I read this, I don't know if you saw, there was this video going around on the internet about this teacher who spends the first 10 minutes of the day complimenting kids. Did any of you see that? And he just sits there and he says, I really like your smile, it brightens my day. And he says all these compliments, and that was it. And then he found over time that the kids, it was a special education class, he found over time that the kids were complimenting each other. I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things that gives you chills. So I have a link to that on my post called The Power of Compliments. Anyway, so I had the brilliant idea, I was like, we're gonna start complimenting each other, it's gonna be so great. So the first night of dinner, we all sat around and everyone thought of one compliment and it went over fine, and like my husband and I did more compliments for the kids and everything. And then by the next night, the boys, they were done. They were out of compliments. So I was like, well, they could give each other one compliment at 12:15. So I said, okay, well, then you know what we're gonna do? We'll just go back to our highs and lows, but we'll share some compliments as we think of them. So compliments can't be forced, is one of the things I learned. You want them to just come naturally, but I think as parents, we can compliment our kids more, compliment their friends, and even brainstorm with them. How are some ways you could compliment some of your friends today? Because it's nice to get a compliment, and when your friends notice nice things about you, it really feels good. And then, of course, going back to my story from the beginning, what do you say when you get a compliment? That's a skill too, is just being able to say, well, thank you, that's so nice that you noticed, or whatever you want to say. But for sure acknowledging it, and it doesn't have to come back with a compliment to them right away. In fact, sometimes that almost diminishes it. But later, you compliment them. So that, I think complimenting is a really easy thing for young kids to learn. Okay, so we looked at these 10 friendship skills. Were you kind of mentally keeping track for yourself of which ones maybe you'd want to work on with your kids? So when I did this as an online course, the 3 that came up the most, and I don't know if they will with you guys as well, because we can't do a poll, unfortunately, were smiling and the nonverbal skills, something that people thought their kids need to work on. The asking questions and conversational skills came up quite a bit, and the dealing with the anger and hard emotions. So all of them obviously have some things, but those were all things that came up a lot. So, once you've kind of identified these things, what I would do is prioritize what is the one that maybe if you worked on, could really enhance your child's social life. Maybe you can help them make a new friend or something like that. And maybe just start with one. And I'm going to just kind of very briefly go through these. I'm going to do it really briefly, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. But just like our counselors at camp, parents can do the exact same things that we do, which is identifying social skills deficits, which is what you're already kind of thinking about as you look through this list, and then coaching in a positive way, like Coach Tyler, how to help our child with that particular skill. So we're going to go through this list, but these are the 5 different coaching tools that I want to give you today. And on the handout that I'll send you, the reason I didn't print it is because it has a lot of links on it, so I'm going to send it to you as a PDF if you sign up on my email list, because you can link through to a lot of resources and some different things that you might want to use. So the very first one is just discussing it. I mean, I really think the opening of this whole thing is, I really, so friends are so important, and I really want to make sure that you're making some good friends in school, and so how would you like to learn and talk about some things that can help you be a better friend, or make more friends, or whatever, however you want to word it. So you kind of, in a positive way, not when you're in like a high emotion time when, your child's feeling sad or anything, but more like in a, hey, let's talk about friends today, kind of discussion. There's a lot of scenarios that you can just like come up with, but you can think of your own based on your own experience and what you've seen with your child. But I really like just that discussion thing is, well, what do you think you should say when like someone says, great game, or gives you a compliment? What's a good response to that? What do you think you should do if, you're standing by the door and the person's like 100 yards away, or, just different scenarios, just kind of talking through them is always good. I think complimenting works really well for kind of scenarios and for talking about things, and also just general manners. You can just kind of talk about that with them too. So just discussing it, talking about it. You can't talk too much with kids, they get tired of you, but with older kids, I honestly think they are pretty good at assessing their own skills. This is a really long list, and the link is on my thing, but you could either, with a younger kid, kind of look through this big, long list of different things, but your child could also think about themselves and say, what are some of these things that maybe I could work on? So this How Are My Social Skills checklist, the one that's shown up there, it's a 1 to 5, and like the first one is listening. Can you pay attention to someone who is talking? So if maybe that's something that is not a strength, there's so many great listening games and activities and things that you can do. So saying thank you. Can you let people know you are thankful for things? So there's some fun, you can do that. I like that not as the parent sitting there filling out a checklist on the child. I like that more for older kids, them looking at themselves and kind of saying, hey, what are some things I want to work on? So you can say as a parent, how about you take a look at this list, and if there's anything that you're feeling like maybe you could work on, let's figure it out together and work on it together. I think I like empowering the kids with that. Then this is the really hard one. As with all things parenting related, it doesn't matter what we say or teach our kids, or even what books we give them to read about it. What they really see is what we do. And so I would encourage you to think about these things that we've talked about, and let your children be in on it. If you have a friend who's sick and you're bringing them by lunch, let your child know, oh, my friend was sick and I stopped by today and brought them lunch. Or, if your child's with you, talk to them about what you're doing to be a good friend, because they will learn a lot from that and get some ideas for themselves of how they can then turn around and be a good friend to others as well. So that's stuff. Okay, so then this is one of those things that your kids will completely roll their eyes and go, oh my gosh, you're not gonna make me do this is just crazy. But I promise they'll go along with it if you just get started and just humor me, just do this. We do a lot of role playing at camp, and once you get into it, it's actually pretty fun. And you can kind of, you can be jokey and kind of be really exaggerated sometimes in your responses, and it can be a fun thing to do. But basically how it works is, you take a topic like asking questions, and you say, okay, let's brainstorm, what are some questions that you could ask? Okay, now I'm gonna be your friend, whatever, make up a name, you be asking the questions, and kind of do a conversation, have them practice the follow-up and everything, and then switch, where they're you're doing the questions and they're doing the thing. So you practice at home, and then you say, okay, so tomorrow at school, try this with one person, and then come back and tell me about it. You know, so they can take their question asking that they learned or whatever it is out into the world and then come back. And then, of course, I just think always remembering that even baby steps, you know, that one smile that you saw, you know, or the compliment they gave, just little things, give lots of praise for just the baby steps, because these things are hard to learn and take a lifetime to really, to really get good at. So I think I've gone over in my time, I'm sorry. I'm gonna close it up, but I am gonna stick around for some question time, and I wanna thank you so much. It's been so much fun being here with all of you today, and like I said, I think it's going around the clipboard, but I'll send you this if you complete a brief survey. I'd also just encourage you, if you don't have to worry about that because I'm going to send it to you. You don't have to try to type in that Google, blah, blah, blah. If you want to send me an email, that's my email address. I also, like I mentioned, my blog is Sunshine-Parenting. Right now it's just a normal blog, but I'm in the process of converting it to a website with lots of resources and things that I've gathered over the years, so I'd encourage you to visit that. And if you sign up on the right column, you'll get emails. I post generally once a week, except for during the summer. And then the other thing is I love Pinterest. I don't know if you guys are on Pinterest, but I have a whole social skills and friendship board with links to tons of resources, role-playing things, and information. So I encourage you to visit any of those places. I'm also on Facebook as Sunshine Parenting. And you don't need to see that. Okay, so thank you so much for